إنما المؤمنون إخوة.
And it gives me great pleasure to invite Sheikh Umair Rajani. Sheikh Umair Rajani is a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Exeter. He has studied for over 15 years, both as a student and as a teacher in the Hawza of Qom in Iran. He has then completed a PhD at the University of Exeter on the transmission of Hadith. Currently, he works on Qawaid al-Fiqhiyya in modern Shia thought. Again, he has been a member of this center for many years. I think in 2017, he presented the session on the succession to the Prophet from Shia perspectives. So we welcome you, Sheikh, and again, 20 minutes, please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I would like to thank Al-Mahdi Institute, especially Center for Intra-Muslim Studies, who invited me for this talk on presenting Shia views on the topic of Fadak. Before we move on, I would like to have a couple of points as introduction, and then I would jump into my talk. The first point which I would like to remind everyone before we start our conversation on this topic is this discussion is a historical discussion. We are not going to delve into theological aspect or legal aspect of the issue, simply for the fact like there is no theological implication. For Saqifa, one could argue there are theological implications in reference to the belief of imamat or caliphate or whatever. But as far as Fadak is concerned, I don't see particularly any theological implication, whether one would believe for or against the notion. There are no legal aspect of Fadak as well in contemporary world when we're discussing this issue, because currently Fadak is owned by a random person in Saudi Arabia, and we can't go back and claim for or against on this property. So I just would like to remind myself and to confine myself in my discussion to from a historical aspect. I would like to make a note that the sources we are referring to in reference to this discussion are later sources. The discussion of Fadak is something which occurred, the dispute occurred soon after the demise of the Prophet. Whereas the sources which we are referring to dates back to 3rd century. So you could see a vast gap between the sources which are referring and which are discussing and disputing and having disagreement on the issue, whereas the issue occurred some 200 years before that. The arguments which emerged in the 3rd century has a color of polemical arguments, because by then we assume the Shias and Sunnis had several thoughts regarding this issue, so that is reflected in the sources which we are consulting. So if you are referring to Bukhari or if you are referring to Kafi in the 3rd century, we would clearly know that the argument has gone its color of full polemical discussion. So you won't necessarily find the origins and the nuances of the discussions going back to 200 years, but in Kafi or Bukhari you would see the polemical arguments. When we discuss Fadak, we need to remember that Fadak is just a symbol, it's just an example, and it's a prime example of the dispute. There were other issues as well, like the land of Orena and many other states which were of similar nature where there was a dispute. So Fadak is not only the issue where the dispute is occurring, rather in a broader sense we need to figure out that the lands which were named as Fey, which I will be discussing in a short while, and non-Fey. So what are the discussions between Fadak and similar states versus the other lands which we would be discussing in this session. We need to remember, and this would be my last point in the introduction, and then I would go back to my original presentation, that the issue of Fadak is closely tied with the issue of caliphates. I can't see the issue of Fadak in isolation of things occurring before the issue of Fadak. So the grievance which Ahlul Bayt ﷺ had is something related to much more than Fadak itself, which is reflected in Nahjul Balagha, where Ali in one of the letters written to Uthman bin Hunayf al-Ansari, he mentions Bala kanat fi aydina Fadak. We had Fadak, but we are not something like, we are not eager to get it. Now this is when Imam Ali is referring to Fadak when he is Caliph. Right? So وَمَا أَسْنَوْ بِفَدَقْ وَغَيْرِ فَدَقْ وَالنَّاسْ مَضَانُّهَا فِي غَدٍ جَدَسٌ. What I have to do with Fadak? This is not a piece of land which I would like to have it or inherit. So here the understanding is Fadak is symbol for something else, which is the Khilafat, which is something related to broader sense of the authorship and the authority of him being an Imam. So that's one. And here I would like to quote Ibn Abil Hadid as well, which is completely in a polemical sense. Ibn Abil Hadid mentioned, Sa'altu Ali ibn al-Fariqi, Mudarris al-Madrasat al-Gharibiyya bi Baghdad. I asked I'm just translating for those who are not quite familiar with Arabic. So Ibn Abil Hadid is asking his teacher, who is in Baghdad. He says, Akanat Fatima Sadiqa, was Fatima rightful in her claim? And his teacher says yes. He says, فَلِمَ لَمْ يَدْفَعْ إِلَيْهَا أَبُو بَكْرَ فَدَقْ. Then why did Abu Bakr, the first caliph, hand over the land and the estate to Fatima, وَهِيَ عِنْدَهُ صَادِقَةٌ فَتَبَسَّمَ. And then he started smiling. ثم قال كلاما لطيفا مستحسنا مع ناموسه وحرمته وقلة دعاء. He was like really very reserved person, but on this occasion he opened up and he said, لو أعطاها اليوم فدك بمجرد دعواها لجاءت إليه غدا ودعت لزوجها الخلافة. So if today she was given Fadak, tomorrow she would come and say like, come on, now there is a second claim which is like Khilafat. Right? So you could see the polemical arguments going on in the 7th century and in the 5th century when Sayyid Sharif Radi is writing Nahjul Balagh and compiling the letters, and here Ibn Abil Hadid in the Sharh of Nahjul Balagh. So that's my introduction. Now I would like to go back to my original discussion about the Fadak. So Fadak is a land, here's Medina, you could see Medina, and this is Fadak. So it's something which is like in north, slightly northeast of Medina, and a rich, fertile land, which is mentioned in Nabil Hadid, that Laysa al-Amr bal kanat jalilatan. It was a very fertile land. وكان فيها من النخل نحو ما بالكوفة الآن من النخل. So it had lots of palm trees and dates, and the produce was amazing. So you could see the distance between Medina, Khaybar and Fadak. Here is Medina, here is Khaybar, and here Fadak. Alright, so the story of Fadak comes from this side. So when Khaybar was conquered in the 7th of Hijrah in Safar, soon after that, or slightly later, we have Fadak, the people coming from Fadak, the Jews residing in Fadak are moving towards Khaybar to offer their land because they didn't want any dispute over here. So the people of Fadak are coming to the Prophet and the Muslim troops to hand over and to make an agreement. And the treaty was concluded on this notion that half of the land or produce or both. There are difference of narrations over here, but the treaty was concluded to give half, not the full. So here still you have the Jews living in this part of Hijaz. It's interesting, at the time of second caliph, when Jews were expelled, the second caliph had to give half of the price of this estate. So till the time of second caliph, the issue was hot, it was debated, Jews were there, and Jews were given half of the price of this land. Now when we know the location of Fadak, we know the Jews were residing, let's focus from the prophetic view. And my discussion would be confined to this, like Fadak during the life of Prophet, Fadak after the life of Prophet, and then the Shia position of Fadak. So the first thing about Fadak, there is a Quranic reference as far as Fadak is concerned, and you see Surah Al-Hajj, as Maulana Sahib already mentioned in his talk, وَمَا أَفَاءَ اللَّهُ عَلَى رَسُولِهِ مِنْهُمْ So what Allah has restored on His messenger minhum, from the Jews, فَمَا أَوْجَفْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ خَيْلٍ وَلَا رِقَابٍ. You people, you Muslims, haven't spurred your horses and camels on that land. Right? So it was given just by God. So when it's given by God, the ruling should be that it belongs to Prophet. When it belongs to Prophet, it belongs as his private property. It won't go to the Muslims. So we are quite aware, like if Muslims in an expedition or like in a military combat, if land was conquered, then Muslimin would have ghanima, part of it, right? And then khums and that sort of thing. But if the thing is, فَمَا أَوْجَفْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ خَيْلٍ وَلَا رِقَابٍ, you haven't spurred your horses or camel, then it doesn't go to Muslims. It doesn't go to the companions. It is just for Rasulullah. And then there are narrations which would say khalisatan li Rasulillah. There are two words, khasatan, and in another reports khalisatan. So it exclusively belongs to the Prophet. So that's regarding Fadak and the Fay. And I think there is an agreement as far as Fadak being Fay and Fadak being Khasatan and Khalisatan li Rasulullah. What would be disputed is what Prophet used to do with this. Right? And what were the produce of Fadak, where they were distributed. So that is something that needs to be discussed, but I'm not going to touch on that particular point right now because it's not relevant to my discussion. As far as Shia position is concerned, Fadak was gifted to Fatima. When the verse وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَى حَقَّهُ وَالْمِسْكِينَ وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ وَلَا تُبَذِّرْ تَبْذِيرًا, this verse was revealed. This was given to Fatima. And this is exclusively coming from a Shia source. I haven't seen it in Sunni source. I would be very delighted to learn from the scholars who could enlighten me if we have Sunni source. And that's the disagreement, where you have Shia sources saying one thing, but you don't see this in Sunni sources at all. So, for example, Tafsir Qumi, in this verse, it mentions, and I would like to read, so we get وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَ حَقَّ وَالْمِسْكِينَ وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ يعني قرابة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وأنزلت في فاطمة. This verse was revealed, the Shan Nuzul, the Sabab Nuzul, the cause of revelation was Fatima. فَجَعَلَ لَهَا فَدَكْ, and the Fadak was bestowed upon Fatima on this occasion. Let me repeat it. This is coming from a Shia source. And we don't have something in Sunni sources. However, we have in Al-Kamil of Ibn Adi, but then he is quoting a Shia source for this narration. And I would like to welcome you to read Ibn Adi and make your own interpretation. But that's quoting from a Shia source, not from a Sunni source. So when we say like it's coming from a Shia source, let's focus more into Shia source and see how she would argue as far as this particular case is concerned. So this is from Kafi, the volume 1, page 543, in which Ali bin Muhammad bin Abdullah al-Barki, the famous teacher and Sheikh of Al-Kulaini, and بعض أصحابنا أظن والسياري Ahmad bin Muhammad al-Sayyari, Etan Kolbek and Amir Muizzi has they have compiled, there's a book on falsification and the tafsir of Sayyari, and Ali bin Asbat bin Salim, who was a Waqifi. قال لما ورد أبو الحسن موسى عليه السلام, the seventh Imam, when he came to the court of Mahdi, the Abbasid Caliphate, رآه يرد المظالم. So Mahdi was saying Abbasid Caliph came into power, and after Umayyads, and they said we need to give all the madhalim because Umayyads were very evil people, and now we Abbasid are very good people, so we will give back all the madhalims to whoever is concerned. فقال يا أمير المؤمنين. So the seventh Imam is asking to Mahdi, فَمَا بَالُ مَظْلَمَتَنَا لَا تَرُدْ. You're giving all the hukuk and madhalim to everyone, but what about us? And then he asked, وَمَا ذَاكَ يَا أَبَا الْحَسَنِ, and he said, لَمَّا فَتَى عَلَى نَبِيِّهِ فَدَكْ وَمَا وَعَلَاهَا لَمْ يُجَفَرِ بِخِيلُ عَلَى رِقَابٍ. And then فَأَنزَلَ اللَّهُ وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَ حَقَّهُ, the ayah was revealed. فَلَمْ يَدْرِ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ, Rasulullah didn't know who are these people, ذَا الْقُرْبَ. فراجع في ذلك جبرائيل وراجع جبرائيل عليه السلام ربه فأوحى الله إليه. Then Allah revealed that you should give Fadak to Fatima. فدعا Rasulullah, and he gave this to Fatima. Right? So again you see from a Shia source, this is there. فقالت قد قبلت يا رسول الله, and she accepted the gift. فلم يزل وكلاؤها فيها حياة رسول الله. So this is an important evidence which Kulaini narrates, suggesting that during the time of Prophet, the agents of Fatima were administrating the affairs of Fadak. So it's not something that occurred after Prophet passed away. During the life of Prophet, her wokala and her agents were administrating the estate. فلما ولي أبو بكر أخرج عنها وكلاءها فأتته فسألته. And then Abu Bakr is asking, the first caliph is asking about the witnesses, and Fatima is producing Ali and Ayman as witnesses, and so on and so forth. So that's during the life of Prophet. What happened after the life of Prophet? Shia sources, again, I'm emphasizing, I'm quoting because I'm here to present Shia position on Fadak. Shia sources would say Fatima was denied the ownership of Fadak. And Fatima made 2 attempts to claim her ownership. That is one by one, not the 2 claims all at once, one by one. So she made the first attempt by claiming that that was my gift, which the Prophet had given to me. So based on this, that it was a gift, Fatima was asked to present the witness, as we saw in the narration of Kulaini, and she presented 2 witnesses, Ali and Ayman. Both of them were rejected for different reasons, for legal reasons, which we won't be discussing. But it's interesting, the fact that the first caliph is entertaining the fact that the first caliph is asking for witnesses, it means he's entertaining the idea of gift, right? Others, if the da'wah was for miras, there was no need of producing witnesses, right? So, but again, this is confined to Shia. So as I said, like we don't have this gift thing in Sunni works, to the best of my knowledge. The second attempt which Fatima made was the share of inheritance. Let's say, like, you know, I'm not given the gift. I may take the advantage of my inheritance, my share, as, like, you know, being the daughter of the Prophet and have a share of inheritance in this property. Was she given? No, she was not given, based on the arguments which Maulana has already presented from Bukhari, and I would like to quote that in some details. So it's coming from Urwa bin Zubayr, from his aunt, al-Mu'minin Aisha. أخبرته أن فاطمة ابنة رسول الله سألت أبا بكر الصديق بعد وفاة رسول الله. And then what's happening, the first caliph is narrating, قال لا نورث ما تركنا صدقة. We are not meant to be inherited, right? So whatever we leave would be sadaqah, would be in a public treasury, but no one could claim inheritance from us, a prophet. I would be focusing on this. فغضبت فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فهجرت أبا بكر فلم تزل مهاجرته حتى توفيت وعاشت بعد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم 6 أشهر. This is a very profound language which, you know, Bukhari is using over here from al-Mu'minin. فغضبت فهجرت, and this continued till hatta tuwufiyat. So I don't find that reconciliation going on. There might be other sources, but as far as, like, you know, one of the best sources we could ever refer to is Sahih Bukhari. When it comes to Ibn Maysam al-Bahrani, which Maulana Sahib was referring to, Ibn Maysam al-Bahrani, he passed away in 679 or 699 according to 2 different variations. That's coming in by the end of the 7th century, right? So you could see, like, it's much later as opposed to these early sources which we are referring over here. Fatima's response. So what happened? Like, after the death of Prophet, she claimed, and then Fatima had to give a response to what the first caliph is asking. So this response is narrated in Ibn Tayfur, Balaghatun Nisa, and many other book of Johari, again 3rd century, of who compiled a Saqifa and Fadak. We don't have this Johari's book. It's constructed work, but the phrases are mentioned in a couple of later works. So this response is this. ثم قالت أنا فاطمة ابنة محمد أقول عودا على بدء. So when she's introducing herself, that it means like she wants to make a bigger claim over here, and the language again is like very, it's not subtle. She's very explicit, and she mentions ثم أنتم أولى تزعمون أن لا أرث لي أن لا إرث لي. This should be إرث instead of أرث. أن لا إرث لي أفعلى عمد تركتم كتاب الله ونبذتموه وراء ظهوركم يقول الله. And then she is referring to verses attempting to demonstrate that Quran mentions that there is inheritance going on between prophets, and the first caliph is claiming that the prophets won't inherit. وورث سليمان داود اختص من خبر يحيى وزكريا قال رب هب لي من لدنك وليا يرثني ويرث من آل يعقوب واجعله ربي رضيا. So there is inheritance going on between the prophet, and here one could argue this is inheritance of spiritual and divine inheritance, nothing to do with mal. But the same occurs in Kulaini as well, as Maulana discussed 2 different places, and I won't repeat that. Those Kulaini would easily argue that that's a spiritual heir, and this belongs to mal. وقال تبارك وتعالى يوصيكم الله في أولادكم للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين. Quran is referring there is a share in inheritance. فزعمتم أن لا حظ لي ولا إرث لي من أبيه. So you people are thinking that I can't inherit. أفحكم الله بآية أخرج أبي منها. Allah has commanded one verse from which my father has been expelled, and he doesn't get included in that verse. أم تقولون أهل ملتين لا يتوارثان. 2 Muslims can't inherit from each other. أم أنتم أعلم بخصوص القرآن أم عمومه من أبي. So you guys are more learned than my dad, my father. أفحكم الجاهلية يبغون. And you could see أترث أباك ولا أرث أبي. So you first caliph, you could easily gain inherit from your father, but I, being the daughter, can't inherit. So you see, the language is much profound when it comes to Fatima's response to the first caliph, and it's in the line of what Sahih al-Bukhari has mentioned. She was completely unhappy by the way she was treated. And Fatima's grievance could be seen in not only in Bukhari, in Muslim as well. Here you see. Here the first caliph is shown as someone who is inclined to give it back, the Fadak. فأبى أبو بكر أن يدفع إلى فاطمة شيئا فوجد فاطمة على أبي بكر في ذلك فهجرته. Yeah, so that's Fatima's grievance. فلم تكلمه حتى توفيت. She didn't speak till she passed away. وعاشت بعد رسول 16 فلما توفيت. This we didn't had this in Bukhari. Here we have it. فلما توفيت دفنها زوجها ليلا ولم يؤذن بها أبو بكر وصلى عليها. So Abu Bakr was the first caliph, was not allowed to participate in the funeral. So here you see it's not easily reconcilable, where we have Bukhari and Muslims mentioning this. Imam al-Siyasa of Ibn Qutayba, I don't want to discuss it, not for the fact I don't have time, for the reason because I don't believe that the way Ibn Qutayba is mentioning is a sound narration. So what about the caliphs? They had different attitude as far as their treatment towards Fadak was different. The conduct of the first two caliphs is like, that belonged to them, or like sadaqah. It was not the property of Fatima. The conduct of the third caliph is strange, because he gifted this land and state to Marwan. So here you see, when it comes to the fourth caliph, first Imam of Shia, he lost completely interest, and he said, like, I won't be bothered to claim it, as I mentioned from Najul Balagha as well. When it comes to Umayyad and Abbasid, again, some of the Umayyads and Bani Marwan wanted to give, and they gave Umar bin Abdul Aziz, but later on they confiscated. Some of the Abbasid wanted to give, and again. So you see, like, there was a debate till the time of Ma'amun. I don't want to discuss why Ali did not go, but in Futul Buldan, you have like Ma'amun suggesting, like, that's the last, I think, as far as the best of my knowledge is concerned, like, this is the last time we see, the Fadak coming into the limelight. After Ma'amun, we don't have much evidence. And my conclusion would be, Quranic verses do not specify the details of Fadak and ownership. فَمَا أَوْجَفْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ الْخَيْلِ, there's no mention of Fadak, we don't know. There are different interpretations. Hadith. I work on hadith, and I'm not convinced that hadith could be the hujji of khabar or hujji of hadith could be used for i'tiqadi issue, or for historical, or for Quranic references and Quranic commentaries. It's limited. The hujji and probativity of akhbar al-ahad is limited, very limited to fiqh, and that needs to be discussed. The second conclusion which I would like to draw over here is, like, prophetic seerah is disputed. We don't know precisely, was it gifted, was not gifted. As I mentioned, Shias also like saying it was gifted, but we don't find in Sunni. So I would say that's a matter of dispute. I can't rely on the prophetic seerah. So the best argument which a Shia could claim is, like, is Fatima being unhappy, and Fatima being someone who is the daughter of Prophet, someone who is very close to him, someone who's apparently, like, it was just 10 days when her wakala and her agents were, like, removed from the Fadak. So that's the best argument which I could present over here, suggesting, like, I won't be necessarily referring to history. As I mentioned in the first slide, those are polemical references, but the ijma, the consensus of Shia fraternity, Shia scholars, would be the preponderance of evidence suggests that Fatima grieved for the remaining days of her life. That is equally reported both in Shia and Sunni sources. That is something we needs to be scrutinizing in much details. Thank you for your attention.